So, next we hear about how some of the world's biggest brands are collaborating to solve packaging solutions sustainably. PACT's Executive General Manager of Strategy and Joint Ventures, Jonathon West, will give us an insight into a game-changing joint venture. It's getting late in the day. Welcome, Jonathon.
Good afternoon, everybody. As mentioned, I'm Jonathon West. I work for PACT Group, the region's leading supplier of rigid plastic packagings and supply chain solutions. I'm here to talk about our sustainability journey and specifically about the collaboration, part of which you just saw in the video. Before I do, I must say thank you, Barry, for your speech, because it was very inspiring and I really enjoyed it. I do feel like a bit of an imposter though. I've checked all my notes. The word cow doesn't come up once. So I'm going to have to, I've quickly scribbled some things in there, so hopefully you'll pick up some country themes in it and I don't sound like too much of a city slicker. Look, about 5 or 6 years ago, PACT did a strategic review of our position, and we realised that as a plastics packaging company, there was a real risk that we would start to be seen and categorised in the same group as tobacco and alcohol, perhaps arms dealers. And that's how we were seen as plastic packaging. And so we really realised that we had a fantastic product. We had a product that made people's lives better, but we had to do something about the sustainability issue, and we were going to have to take a leadership role in that. And to do that, we knew we had to embrace the circular economy. And you've heard people reference being circular in here, and that's exactly what we decided we needed to do. And it wasn't really a choice, it was an existential question as we saw it, that if we didn't become more sustainable, we wouldn't have a future. So our vision became leading the circular economy, the plastic circular economy, through recycling, reuse, and packaging solutions. And I will talk a little bit about what that means. There we go. Okay, so what does leading the circular economy actually mean? Well, for us, there were two specific aspects to it. You'll see behind me the sort of hierarchy of waste and waste displacement, and there are two particular ones that are relevant to our business. And that is reuse, which is taking a packaging at this end of life and reusing it. So not throwing it away, not recycling it, but treating it in a way that allows that packaging to be reused. And PACT now has grown expertise in reuse business models across a diverse range of different products. Everything from produce crates to IBCs to agricultural drums, right through to plastic coat hangers that we can circle around the economy. And the second is recycling. And recycling obviously is where you take the end-of-life product and you actually grind it down to its raw material, and then you use those raw materials to make the product again. Now, PACT Group has been in recycling for over 30 years, predominantly in post-industrial, post-commercial recycling. But we realised that if we were going to make a genuine difference, we were going to have to get into post-consumer recycling, and that's something that I'll talk to you about a little bit later on. So from reuse, probably our best example of reuse business models is our produce crate business. And our produce crate business is where farmers use crates, plastic crates, instead of cardboard boxes to transport their produce from the farm to the retailer DC and then on to the retailer store. At the retailer store, once the crate has been emptied, it is folded up, it's returned to PACT's operations, where we sort it, we wash it, we prepare it ready to be collected again by the produce growers, and then around it goes again. Now that crate can go around at least 14 times a year and probably lasts about 15 years. So if any of you are good at maths, you can see that that one crate can replace well over 200 cardboard boxes in the economy. And in doing so, it is able to reduce carbon emissions by about 60%, water usage by 20%, and energy consumption by 50%. So we've grown this business from one that didn't exist 5 years ago to now servicing over 500 produce farms. And our retail partners, predominantly in this case Woolworths and Aldi, are really working closely with us to drive that penetration even further. So we're looking for that business to become bigger and the conversion from cardboard box into crates that are reusable to become more pronounced. But it's not the only model, and I think for agricultural businesses, you may from time to time come across some of these other examples. There's drum muster. That takes about 330,000 tonnes of plastic containers out of the waste stream every year, granulates them and turns them into new plastic containers for fertiliser or for feed and seeds, for chemicals. There's IBC reconditioning, where we collect in the vicinity of 200,000 IBCs every year. We recondition them and then we put them back into the supply chain so that they don't end up in landfill. And steel drums. Our steel business collects about 500,000 steel drums every year, reconditions them. Once they're reconditioned, you might not notice it, or you might not realise from the outside, but from the inside and for their functionality, they are as good as new, and we put them back into the supply chain. So reuse is a really important part of the solution for us. But one of the initiatives that we're super proud of is Circular Plastics Australia, which, as mentioned, and a couple of the speakers have mentioned this, is a collaboration, and I'll come on to why that's so important. But it's a collaboration with 3 very large consumer or branded companies in Cleanaway, Asahi, and Coca-Cola. And what it meant for us was a really big step out of just focusing on recycling plastics within the post-industrial and post-commercial world into recycling them in a post-consumer world. But what we realised when we started off on this endeavour was we could not do this alone. There was no way that PACT Group was going to be able to bring the expertise, bring the resources and the people, bring the capital to bear that was required to really contribute in a meaningful way to bringing sustainability to post-consumer packaging. So what we did is we partnered up with Cleanaway, the country's, at least in Australia, the country's biggest waste management company, and of course Asahi and Coca-Cola, who are the 2 largest players in the beverage industry and the 2 largest consumers of PET plastic containers. And together with PACT's ability to convert recycled raw materials into packaging, between the 4 of us we were able to what we call close the loop. So actually create the circle right from consumer container all the way back to consumer container again. Our first operation is in Albury. We have built a facility there that can process up to 1 billion plastic bottles every year. and turn them into new consumer containers. And that was the video that you saw earlier as I came up on stage. And we're building 2 further plants, one in Altona, will also be converting PET, and a further plant in Laverton, which will be actually focused on what's known as high-density polyethylene, predominantly milk bottles, recycling those for reuse back into milk bottles. And we are hoping that within a couple of years, with our dairy partners, you will see milk bottles with 30, 40, 50, maybe more percent recycled material in them that are made from milk bottles. So that will be very exciting when that happens. So when those 2 plants are on board, together with PACT's existing recycling network, we're going to have the largest network in the region of recycling capability that will be processing well over 100,000 tonnes of plastic material every year. So that's 100,000 tonnes of plastic that's taken out of the waste stream, that doesn't go to landfill, and that ends up being turned into something valuable and useful. So why have I been asked to tell you about all of this? I think it's largely because we learnt some things along the way, and I think maybe some of these learnings could be helpful as the agricultural industry and adjacency industries look to take their journey into sustainability. For us, there were 3 key learnings that we took out of the experience of setting up Circular Plastics Australia. The first is that it is a circle. The circular economy is a circle. So it's no good just addressing one part of it. You've actually got to ensure that the different parts of the circle are all being addressed so that the circle can go round. And for us, there were 4 parts to that circle. There was access to raw material. And that's, in the CPA example, that's where Cleanaway played a major role because they could access the waste material for the joint venture. The second is actually being able to turn the raw material into recycled, in our case, recycled resins. And that required investment, real investment. And that's why we teamed up and formed Circular Plastics Australia with other big brands and big players in the industry to bring that investment to bear. And I'm pleased to say the government supported us in that, and there were grants available both at a federal and a state level to accelerate the investment in this space. The third leg of it was manufacturing platforms. So it's no good having recycled raw material if you can't turn it into a product that people want. And that's critical. You've got to be able to turn recycled material into product that people want, or else all that's going to happen is that recycled material is going to end up in landfill. And so with PACT's platform of packaging manufacturing, we were able to take that material and turn it back into food and beverage containers that our customers wanted. And then lastly, and probably most importantly, because it creates the pull that makes the whole circle go round, you need consumers, you need customers and consumers, but you need customers who are going to stand up and demand recycled material or reused material. And companies like Bega, companies that we have worked closely with, obviously our partners in Coca-Cola and Asahi. Also, we work closely with some of the major retailers. We really got a lot from the leadership that those companies bring to bear in creating the circular economy, in creating the demand for the product that's going to filter its way back upstream through the supply chain and the value chain, and demand that material is available. Without that end customer saying, I want recycled material in my packaging, then the whole thing breaks down. So where do I see the next challenge for us and for the agricultural industry? You heard before that there is a whole ream of challenges that I think we'll be facing as an industry. But for us, the one that we're focused on, perhaps playing a small part in assisting in, is in relation to soft plastics. So you can't lead the circular economy in plastics if you're not prepared to tackle some of the harder plastics that are out there. And soft plastics are technically more difficult to recycle than hard plastics. For the agricultural industry, for us, that means bale wrap, silage wrap, stretch wrap at back of house that's on your pallets or on the cardboard boxes. Now, the industry is working hard to find solutions for that, from a recycling point of view. We are collaborating with partners right at the moment, and we're hopeful that within a couple of years we're going to have facilities up and running that can mechanically recycle this material, turn it back into raw materials that can then be used to make more stretch wrap and silage wrap. So that's very much a focus for us as one of the next frontiers, and we're bringing on new partners. I think, again, as the messaging was before, you cannot do this stuff alone. You've got to work with other people, and we're bringing on new partners to try and solve that. The other area, the other technology where a lot of investment is taking place is chemical recycling. Now, chemical recycling, a little different to mechanical recycling, takes the material, breaks it down, and actually brings it back to its original source polymers. And then those source polymers are re-entered into the supply chain right at the beginning. It is a form of circularity, and it is a form of recycling. However, at the moment, it's very expensive, consumes a lot of energy, and my expectation is it's 5 years plus before we'll see a viable chemical recycling facility in this part of the world. But it is certainly a technology to watch for the future. So what would I say are the key takeaways from at least our experience in sustainability and the circular economy? I think, first of all, it isn't going to be just one solution. So for us, it was about looking at both reuse and recycling, but looking at multiple different methodologies for becoming more sustainable. I don't think that there is just one solution out there that's going to be the magic silver bullet for everything. Secondly, as I mentioned, remember that a circular economy is a circle, so you can't just solve for one aspect of it. You need to be thinking about, who do I need to involve to make sure that the full circle is being solved for? That all points that are critical to keep the circle rolling are actually being attended to. Because otherwise you end up, and I know some people will have heard the recent news about the Red Cycle. And Red Cycle did a fantastic job of solving for collections. What they didn't quite do such a good job of is solving then for turning the material into something useful that people wanted. And so ultimately, materials got stored up in warehouses. So if you're going on a circular economy endeavour, just make sure that you're looking at all parts of the circle. And then lastly, I think again, as has been mentioned by some other speakers, collaboration is critical. You can't solve for circularity by yourself. You need to work horizontally within your industry. You need to work vertically with your suppliers and with your customers to make sure everybody's on board to deliver the benefits of a circular outcome. So it is amazing, though, once you get that, bring people on board, what you can achieve working together. Thank you very much.